Oh, this is wonderful. I'm so glad you guys are joining us. I see you, Susan, Heather, Miranda, Joanne, Gail, Jessica. I'm really excited to have this webinar tonight because I very much respect and actually like these people that are on the webinar. Not that I don't like other people on webinars, but it's a real treat to be able to do this webinar tonight. My name is Sarah Cooperman. I'm the CEO of SCW Fitness Education and Water in Motion and the SEAT training for the chair-based active aging program. We're here today. We've got Kimberly Spreen Glick, who's with us. She served as the Senior Director of Group Fitness at Lifetime for over a decade. She was the IDEA Program Director of the Year as well. And she's got an amazing online program. It's a platform. It's called The Inspired Life University. And I will ask Chris Purple, who's running this webinar for us, to put that link in because it's really wonderful. The primary focus is helping fitness professionals expand their knowledge, perspective, and skill sets so they can make bigger positive impacts and thrive as wellness leaders. Kimberly also very graciously wrote our SCW Life Coaching certification, which has been extremely well received. We've also got Jessica Moyer with us, who is stepping in for one of our presenters who was unavailable. Jessica, we met over the pandemic. I think I read some article you wrote and I was like, I hunted you down like a dog. It's very flattering, right? She's the author of Triumph Through the Tears, Finding Hope and Purpose Through Loss and the 5 Gs of a Stronger Mindset. She's a certified Ziegler Life legacy coach, a John Maxwell trainer and coach, ACE personal trainer, blah, blah, blah. She's the owner of a really interesting studio. It's a boutique wellness studio. So it's really got a holistic approach, really very interesting. And then I've got 2 of my favorite people who actually did standing ovation keynotes at our Florida Mania. So they're smiling there because I keep bugging them, come back, come back. Victor Brick, he is the co-founder with his wife and CEO, and they opened 95 health clubs, both in the United States as well as in Australia. The name of it is, I'm going to get this, Ohana, and it means family in Hawaiian. And he's the founder of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation, whose mission it is to change the way the world treats mental health. And Victor and his wife both sit, you can see Lynn, the beautiful Lynn to his left, sit on the advisory board of the Global Wellness Summit, and they were both the recipients of the Deborah Simon Award for Leadership, furthering mental wellness. And Lynn also, just so you know, very brilliant woman. She has a master's degree in health and wellness coaching with an emphasis on nutrition. And she also was the IDEA International Instructor of the Year. So I'm like out of breath right now. This is pretty interesting. And it's really nice for us to be here today because I think we're really struggling with the issues of social isolation and career difficulty over the past few years. This is the focus of managing mental health, which is what we're talking about today. And the industry is focused on health and wellness, but we really also need to integrate mental health. And I'm going to deviate away from the traditional description that we wrote. Before we turn the camera on, which I thought was so interesting, is I think it was you, Jessica, that mentioned these people that attend our classes, our personal training sessions, are involved in health and wellness. They come to us and they exercise, and we know more about them than sometimes their family members, their close friends. They're always sharing things. So I'm just jumping right in. How do we approach the topic of mental health with our clients?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, Jessica, I'm asking you.
Yeah, so I know personally it's listening to the women. I work primarily with women, listening to them when they come in, I can usually sense, and I think all of us are the same, you can usually sense when something is off with someone. So asking them questions about their day, asking them sometimes if there's anything bothering them going on in their personal life. We talked about active listening, just being engaged, repeating back to them what they're saying, and just knowing that you care and that you're there for them. I am personally not a psychologist or a professional. I'm a life coach, but that really doesn't give me the authorization to counsel, but to listen and ask questions to helpfully give them some insights onto how they can improve upon whatever is going on in their life.
That's great. What I'd like you guys to do is, I'm noticing that I've seen a few things enter the chat box. If you move your mouse and you go to the left of that green share button, you'll see the chat button. Most of us know what that is. Please feel free to click on it, fill in your name and where you're from. And in this way, we will know that you're able to ask questions. I mean, we have over 100 people, I think it's over 150 people that have registered for the webinar. The majority of people, believe it or not, listen in via our podcast or the Zoom link to the recorded webinar. You guys are here live. Tell me where you're from and feel free during this webinar to ask questions because we're here for you. Kimberly, how do you deal with when you see one of your clients that's having some issues, or what are some of the symptoms or evidence that you can pick out that tells you somebody else is struggling?
Yeah, it's a great question, because one of the greatest things we can offer is just to be aware, to be so fully present when we're with our clients, whether it's one-on-one or in a group setting, but just to be aware. And so if they seem a bit withdrawn, if they typically are more conversational, more outgoing, if they're missing appointments, they're missing classes, might be a good time to reach out and have a conversation. And Lynn, before the call, made a really great point that especially if you see behavior that is transpiring for more than 2 weeks, then a conversation is really warranted. Kind of like we've always said, if you can point to pain in your body and it lasts for more than 2 weeks, it's time to go get it checked out. Well, when you have pain in your heart, it's very similar. So, but I wanted to make sure to point that out that Lynn shared. But to be able to connect with people, we are hardwired for connection as human beings. And when people are struggling emotionally, and I, much like Jessica, I'm not a licensed healthcare professional. And I think it's important, if we are going to start having even conversations where we're simply asking questions to check in with our community, that we have the willingness and the ability to refer as needed. But should people ask for that? But we can still have conversations that allow us to make connection and to make people feel accepted and seen. And just having a conversation where you can be fully present, be authentic, because that's how we connect. It sometimes can be enough for people to feel seen, to feel heard, and to feel like somebody cares. And that can make a huge difference.
And be able to at least express it. I mean, maybe we can't give them the counseling. And being a lawyer, I always think, first thing out of my mouth would be, I'm not a licensed physical therapist or social worker or psychologist, but I hear that you're in pain and you might want to really go and talk to somebody. Lynn, could you elaborate just a little bit on what Kimberly highlighted? You did mention, like I said, how do you know when to talk to these people or what to say? And you did that 2 weeks analysis. What else are some of the triggers or some of the signs that mental health is being challenged by one of our clients?
I think that Kimberly kind of hit that as well, noticing and being aware of atypical behavior for your clients and understanding the rules of communication, the 7-38-55 rule of communication, which broken down is 7% of what is communicated are merely the words you say, 38% is how you say those words, and a whopping 55% is your body language. And if someone usually has more pep in their step, for example, and they're dragging into the gym or into their session with you, then that's obviously a sign. And the reason why I came up with the 2-week kind of a line of demarcation, so to speak, is Because, you know, if any kind of, you have a wound on your skin, if it lingers longer than 2 weeks, definitely get it checked out. If there's any other kind of medical issue, the 2-week period of time. But I also wanted to just interject another concept. It's not just about having a conversation, because sometimes conversations between trainer and client can be very either prescriptive, like the trainer telling the client what to do, or focused on a conversation that involves, well, in my opinion, as the trainer, in my opinion, or in my experience, this is what I've seen, as opposed to just, as Kimberly and Jessica mentioned, being present and just saying, tell me more. How does this make you feel? How did that make you feel in that moment? If someone is sharing something very deep and personal with you, it's just, but that's the kind of presence we're talking about.
Yeah, and again, before we turned the camera on, I shared that I remember driving my kids to hockey, and you try to get a teenage boy to talk. I mean, it's just not going to happen. But I drive him to hockey, and I got a couple boys in the car, and I drop them off, and then I go to pick them up. After they've exercised, it's like the floodgates open. And I think I also mentioned, I've been teaching, you know, yoga, and I teach Shavasana, and somebody's crying because I've used some song that reminds them of something, or maybe it's some verbalization I shared. But after that exercise, you do get this release. And so sometimes we are the person they're reaching out to. Victor, you and Lynn started the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation. Can you share a little bit about why you started it, how you started it, and what your goals are?
Well,
Yeah,
certainly.
in 5 minutes or less.
Yeah, certainly. We started the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation because my brother suffered from schizophrenia his entire life, and in all the years of his treatment, he was never put on a fully integrated, well-rounded self-care, salutogenic, holistic approach program, as well as the traditional big three: psychoanalysis, medication, institutionalization. Those are the big three. They were the way Freud treated it 100 years ago. Guess what? They're the way they treat it today. So here's the problem we face, and several people on the panel have already said, we're not fitness professionals and we refer. The problem when you refer, unfortunately, is guess what they're going to treat, how they're going to treat this person: psychoanalysis, medication, institutionalization. So quite frankly, we've got to be able to do something. And right now we can't, because nobody knows what to do. Nobody's qualified what to do. Nobody really understands the science. And so we've kind of got the philosophy of one of the leading mental health institutions in the world that we sit on the board of, and that is identify early, medicate early. And that's got to stop. We've got to have this integrative approach, this interplay of self-care and healthcare. And together, they can dramatically move the needle for mental well-being in individuals. But unfortunately, if we as the fitness profession say, well, we can't get too involved and we're going to refer them on, you're going to get what you've always got, which is a lot of people on medication that didn't really need to be on medication and don't really know what to do other than take the prescribed dosage every day. And my brother died of the complications from the medication, not schizophrenia. And research, the science is there. John W. Brick did an analysis of 1,400 research papers over 30 years. And it conclusively proves that exercise helps with mental health issues. We talked about loneliness, the two things that are needed for most important for good mental health: connectivity, coping skills. The two things that cause mental illness the most: loneliness, lack of coping skills. We can provide both. We can provide both. And our challenge is to get to where we can be part of that delivery system, and we know the early things that we can do, and we know what we can and can't do, and we educate and we lead, we provide the connectivity and the coping skills.
connectivity and the coping skills. Jessica, you've got specifically a boutique studio that deals with wellness. And so I'm seeing that you've been able to do some of that integration. We did get a really great question from Mary, who said, what are good ways to do that when you have like 25 people in your group fitness class? Jessica, how do you accomplish that? How do you pull some of the wellness into the fitness programs you offer?
Yeah, I mean, 25 people is definitely a big group. I typically have about 15, but you could have people kind of introduce themselves. You could do icebreakers because you have control over the class. So you can integrate those type of things into the class. I think it's really important to have like a buddy system to meet other people in the classes, introducing a new member, maybe having them share a fun fact, so they feel welcome, because it's really hard when someone new walks into a class and they don't know anyone. So little ways you can integrate it. Journaling before, after class. I know I presented at SCW, one of my classes is called MEPS. It's a mental, emotional, physical, and social like experience where there's a theme. So integrating a little aspect of not just working out, but maybe talking like about a statistic of mental health, or maybe nutrition tip that could help. Because that's another big piece of what Victor was talking about, nutrition. I have little inspirational notes I leave out that people could give each other. I give one out each day to someone I feel like could use it. So there's little ways you can kind of mix that in and make it fun without it being too heavy, because we all have so much heaviness in our life.
Yeah, and I think that we had so much isolation. Even if you've got Zoom, we've got our cameras on here, but I can't tell you how many times I've dealt with staff or different people and the camera's off. And I'm like, I really don't, Lynn brought it up, 55% of what we're saying is interpreted by our physical reactions and demonstrations. And that is true. I also think, Jessica, I love your cues on things to do when there's 25 people in that class. But I also think simple things that we've always been taught as group fitness instructors and personal trainers: show up. Get to that class 10, 15 minutes early and be prepared to hang around 10, 15 minutes after, and just smile and keep your ears open and stop staring at yourself in the mirror. Right, Kimberly? No
We're on their cell phones.
What'd you say?
We're on their cell phones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. So Kimberly, what are some other cues that might inspire some of our students to share more?
I think that, and Mary, thank you for that question. I think that we have so much opportunity. And what you said, Sarah, you hit the nail on the head. It starts with how we show up, because we are the ones that need to provide this sacred space where people are able to come in and feel like they're part of an inclusive experience. People have different behavioral styles. They respond to different forms of communication and different drills and activities and exercises. So we can try different things, and Jessica had some great suggestions. But if we just overall can keep the space judgment-free, inclusive, and positive, and make sure that we enter in not only every experience, every opportunity to work with a client, every time we teach a class to 25 people, we enter in a state of appreciation. So I have a little thing that I do before I jumped on this webinar. Actually, I just give myself 30 seconds. I close my eyes. I take 3 deep breaths. Sarah, don't make fun of me. But I close my eyes. I take 3 deep breaths, and I just say, I don't have to do this. I get to do this. And I repeat that 2 more times. So 3 deep breaths, and 3 times, I don't have to do this. I get to do this. And most of the time, I'm excited to jump in and get to do what I do anyway, just as I'm sure most of you are. We get to teach, we get to uplift people for a living. It's amazing. But if you ever find yourself in a moment of maybe bringing in any negativity with you, or you're tired or whatever, give yourself that little drill, because when you can enter into the space, so glad that you're there, appreciating the opportunity you have to spend with this group of people, that in and of itself changes the game. It changes the energy in the room. And then from there, provide this inclusive experience where all feel welcome, then makes a big difference.
It does make a big difference. I find this at the conferences, which is amazing. Sometimes I'll walk into somebody, it's a presenter's room, and I always try to hide because people like freak out when I'm in the room. So I kind of hide and I take the class. And I'll go, oh my God, that choreography was amazing. And I'm like looking at the reviews, and the reviews are like, okay. But I'll go into another class where there's less choreography, but that presenter was like smiling and telling jokes, and everybody just wanted to be there. And I think, and they get these off the charts reviews. And it seems so simple, you know, when, especially Kimberly, when you explain it, but it really is. You take 3 deep breaths. I took an Advil. I got, and I'm not kidding, because I actually got a migraine before the webinar. It's been a little stressful around SCW launching all our new classes and programs, but that's really helpful. And Victor, I'm going to ask you, what is,
you brought up really quickly?
yeah.
I don't want anyone to glaze over the point you brought up when you were teaching yoga, and sometimes during Savasana, because of a particular song you played, there's maybe that song in general, or maybe there's a lyric in the song, you know, and Jessica mentioned sharing a statistic or a helpful tip. We can share quotes and stories. We never know. It could be one phrase that we share through a song or through a story or through an inspirational quote that matters to us, that we share during an experience, whether it's one-on-one or 1 to 25, that can flip a person's day and flip their mindset to a better place. Don't take it for granted.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to jump to Lynn. Lynn, you're nodding. You've got to contribute.
Yeah, well, I love what you were saying, Kimberly, and Sarah as well. And I just wanted to say that, you know, I think one of the things, well, there are 2 things. One thing is that is very helpful to make sure you leave your biases, your personal opinions in your house. Don't even bring it in the car with you when you're on your drive to the gym. And you know, sometimes people say, check it at the door. No, leave it in your house or somewhere private in your own home. If you have any biases about people that are suffering, basically everyone in your class or your small group training experience or one-on-one experience is whole. They're not broken.
Yeah.
And if we approach everyone with this mindset, it as you mentioned, Kimberly, without judgment-free and without any kind of thoughts or biases that we have about size, race, gender, beliefs, any of that stuff, it makes the whole world much more beautiful, right? The other thing is that since there are so many people on this call, and maybe many more that will be listening as well, we need to do the things that we need to do to put our own oxygen mask on first before we can be present for others. It's the greatest gift you can give yourself and to give others. So those are the 2 things that came to mind when I was shaking my head.
Yeah, it's great stuff. So Victor, what is our responsibility with our clients and mental health, and how does it affect our scope of practice? I mean, because we are in the fitness profession, we're certified fitness personal trainers or group fitness instructors. What's our scope of practice?
So again, a complicated question. I wanted to lead into it by talking about what we can do and how we can identify. It has to be a team effort. It cannot be left up to any one individual, any one department, an aerobic group exercise instructor. It's got to start with the membership counselors. It's got to start with the front desk. It's got to be management. It's got to be the personal trainers. When you ask somebody, how are you doing? You should mean it. And this 55-38-7 rule of communication, if you look at them and they say, oh, I'm doing fine, your responsibility to them is to know that they're not and say, no, really, how are you doing? The other responsibility we have is to educate. It's up to us. We get in front of our class or a group or whatever, and we tell them things like 1 vigorous bout of exercise is equal to the entry-level dose of Zoloft. We just had lunch, dinner and drinks.
drinks.
Drinks with a new couple that we met here. And what's her position?
She's a therapist, a
So she's a
psychotherapist.
therapist. She brought that statistic up, which I use all
Okay,
the
you
time.
gotta
as you know,
say
Sarah.
that again, Victor, about the Zoloft.
I beg your pardon?
You gotta say that
Yeah,
again.
one vigorous bout of exercise is equal to an entry-level dose of Zoloft. We should educate these people on this, but here's the key word there: vigorous. Vigorous. We've got to know. We've got to. What's our responsibility? Educate ourselves, and then pass it on. Educate ourselves, and then pass it on. We remember the terms I used: self-care, healthcare, integrative. People cannot administer self-care if they don't have coping skills. Remember, I talked about coping skills. We've got to give them these coping skills, and some of it is nothing more than education. And then we inspire. You inspired somebody, Sarah, with that Savasana, and I do know Savasana. It's my best pose. I got no problem with dead man's pose. I've mastered it. But the point is that you inspired somebody, then lead on it. After the class is over, I noticed that really touched you. How did it make you feel? Few probing questions. Be present, be involved. And we, in our organization, we don't call it connections, we call it collisions. We don't want to have connections with our members. We want to have collisions. A connection is, hey, how are you doing? Have a good day. That's a connection. Hey, Mike, how are you? Have a good day. A collision is, Mike, how you doing, man? I heard you had an accident the other day. Is your car okay? How's it going, buddy? You're looking a little bit down. A collision, have something there. And I could go on and on, but basically educate ourselves and pass it on. Be a light. Let's be a light.
And it's interesting because the very next question that we were going to chat about is how do we balance mental health and physical health with our clients? And it's, you know what, what you described, Victor, it's just a balance.
It's one of they are inseparable. They are inseparable. I'll give you an example. Do you know that there are two things that are the cause of so many issues, both mentally and physically? One is loneliness. We talked about that. Loneliness leads to what? Leads to depression. Depression is the root cause of almost every single mental health issue. The second is sleep. Sleep is the single most important thing beyond the essentials like breathing and heart rate that you need. You cannot be healthy without sleep. You cannot be happy without sleep. You cannot have good mental health without sleep. Sleep is a physical, loneliness is a mental, but they are interconnected. And nobody can have good mental health that doesn't sleep well. And nobody can
And
have
one
good
of the
physical
best
health that doesn't
ways-
sleep well.
Yeah, and what's one of the best ways to sleep?
You
Exercise.
have to
To
meditate,
exercise.
to exercise, to learn how to control your breathing. Everybody just talks about it, but there are just so many simple things. We could do a 2-minute breathing exercise. And I know everybody here, probably everybody on this call knows the breathing exercise, but cyclical breathing, that would help many, many people with their sleep, because what happens, of course, the mind takes over and runs away.
All
with
right,
it.
you got to do the sleep. You got to do the breathing.
You're kidding.
Please.
Okay, so I'll let Lynn do it. Lynn will do
Okay.
the forehand.
All right, so is everyone ready to breathe with me? But sit up as tall as you can and uncross your legs, please. And place one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. And what you're going to do is just do a practice round first. First, you're going to inhale for 4 counts of 4 seconds. And start with your belly, inflate it for 2, and your chest for the other 2. Hold for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale for 8. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And sometimes you can even make a sound as you're exhaling. Now that was your practice round. Let's try it a couple more times. Inhale slowly, belly and chest. 2, 3, 4. Hold 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, inhale, belly, chest, 3, 4, hold, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When you do 4 rounds of those, it helps to activate the parasympathetic system, which is your
And-
relaxation.
And what's great is this is something you can integrate, all of us can
Immediately.
integrate into our personal training sessions or into our group exercise closing sessions. Victor,
Yeah, just real quick. You accomplish 2 things with this little breathing cycle. One is mental. Fear will fill the gap between the known and the unknown if you let it. If you don't fill that gap with something, you'll fill it with fear, like what's going to happen with my finances? What am I going to do tomorrow? Breathing, of course, keeps you focused on what? The present. So you're lying in bed, you can't sleep, you do this exercise, boom. And the second thing is there is a physiological benefit to breathing, which is what Lynn talks about. And everyone on this call should use the right terms, parasympathetic, sympathetic, you should know these terms, and it kind of gives you credibility. But the point is that you could take this with you immediately. And it's the type of thing when you ask somebody how they're doing and they say, well, I'm in trouble sleeping, and boom, you're not. One of the keys when you're working with people with issues, any type of issues, is you got to keep the Hippocratic Code top of mind, oath, and that is do no harm. And nobody is going to get hurt doing cyclical breathing. Nobody's going to get hurt doing a cardio program based on heart rate. Nobody's going to get hurt doing our classes. So there's so many things we can do that are in our power alley or in our scope of knowledge without overreaching.
and I think about this, I'm going to throw this at you, Kimberly, because you did write the life coaching certification for us. I think about this and I wonder, all of us on this call have been in this industry multiple decades. I really have a feeling that I think our certifications are going to change, and we're going to have, and we should have, some type of mental health chapter and address it. And I think this is, I always look at the pandemic and I see what are our silver lining. And one of the major silver linings has been that people have realized the association of physical health to mental health, and that people are focused on trying to assist others that might need some more emotional support. So I'm going to throw this out to the universe, and actually SCW is we're going to put our money behind this, and we're going to add some chapters on mental health to our personal training certification and our group exercise certification, because they deserve training. Now, Jessica, I'm going to ask you real quick. You always do your quotes. Where do you find your quotes? So, I've done stuff like Googling inspirational quotes, and I get great quotes from there. Where do you find yours?
Same way. Yeah, same way. And things that speak to me, I feel like speak to others. So yeah, I just Google them. I look for things that I think are relative. And again, right now, we see what's happening in our world, and mental health is definitely taking a toll, not just on adults, but children. And we can be the light for people. And so sharing just a quote or something inspirational, or even a little story of how it helps someone else, can really make a difference. Or have people write their own. They could write their own. You could have little cards in the gym and let people write something and share it.
Oh, that's great. Kimberly, what are some of your thoughts around that?
I think it's all inseparable. So I'm actually, glad that we're realizing that there is that silver lining that came from the pandemic, because well-being is a broad topic. And so we all kind of grew up in the health and fitness industry, which is predominantly focused on the physical, but there's no way to live your best life only focused on the physical. So, the wheel of well-being that I teach from, the way I created it from a visual perspective is to have all of the elements touching because when I teach about it, I teach that everything is interconnected. Your physical well-being, your emotional well-being, your social well-being is all interconnected. And so for us to, for starters, embrace that. So we as fitness professionals, all of you out there, we've got to embrace that. And then I've just got to go back, because Victor, what you said really inspired me, to educate yourself and pass it on. That can seem a little scary at first for fitness professionals, but I want to encourage you to embrace that, because there was a time in your life, maybe a few years ago, you didn't know how to stretch the hamstring, but you learned how to stretch your hamstring. And then you learned how to teach other people how to put their body into a position where they could stretch their hamstring. You educated yourself, you learned it, you tried it on, you lived it, and then you were able to lead others. And what we're talking about in the realm of wellness, which fitness is a part of. So this isn't about you having to change lanes in your professional work. You're doing the good work you're meant to do. This is about you widening the lane that you're in to embrace the fact that we are more than physical bodies. And there is much more that you can learn as a leader that you can then pass it on, as Victor shared, and be the light, as he said. So I think it's our responsibility to do that.
You know, it's interesting. We got a great comment from Mary Friedrich. Mary listens to a lot of our webinars. I've seen that name several times. She said, I get a lot of inspirational quotes from people that she follows on Facebook. And I think that's what you do with your Inspired Life. Kimberly, I know that's what you do with your I don't think it's a course, it's a group. Yeah. Pardon me?
All the above.
All of the above, all of the above. And I love the idea of seeing that we're building community, and we know how important that is. So what are some of the strategies or resources available to fitness professionals? And I'm going to throw that to you, Lynn and Victor, because I don't think we have enough. We were just beginning with the life coaching. You know, we're just beginning to integrate and really accept it. And I think a lot of clubs are beginning to do it. But what are some of the other things we might be able to do?
Well, I'll start, then I'll pass it on to Lynn. Really quickly, ideally, and in the future, and one day in the perfect world, we would all know health professionals that believed in self-care, so that when we did pass people on, we know that they're not just going to be put on medication and forgotten about. And right now, I don't know how many of us on this call know a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist that we really truly believe understands the benefit of exercise in the treatment and movement and healthy lifestyle. Forget exercises. It's much bigger than that. Healthy lifestyle in the treatment of mental health. That's a problem. The resources, we toot our own horn. We would like to start with the John W. that you would use the John W. Brick as a starting point. One of the things we did, as I said, was well, maybe I haven't. This is my second seminar of the day. One of the things we did at the John W. Brick is we collated 1,400 studies over a 30-year period on how salutogenic approaches such as mind-body movement, mind-body and exercise benefited mental health, and to what degrees. We're now coming out this spring with the same research analysis for nutrition. We're not doing the studies. We couldn't possibly do 1,400 studies, but other people did. So we're doing your homework for you. We're developing we've basically taken a whole library of research and collated it for you. And you can go there and look up any exercise and see what benefit it's had on mental well-being.
And I'm going to ask Chris Purple, who's running our webinar this evening. Chris, could you put in the link to the John W. Brick Foundation so that our listeners have it?
And it's /resources.
Right, but there are others as well, and it's the old story is that you go online and you search for self-care. You search for salutogenic approaches. Salutogenic, as I said, everybody knows what pathogenic means. Pathogenic means illness. Salutogenic means wellness. And a lot of people struggle with what is wellness. And you look it up in the dictionary or the online, there's 50 100 definitions. I like to think of wellness as living your best life. So,
And-
so look up people that promote living the best life, and you can't live your best life without exercise, without movement, without proper nutrition, without healthy living. So you have to do your homework because there are not a lot of really established resources at the moment. And that's what it's one of the things that John W. Brick is trying to become. So Lenny?
And that's great. Chris just put the link in there, and I think it's very important. I'm actually doing a presentation. I'm on a talk show with Ursa, with Brent Darden, Bill McBride, Blair McCaney, and it's supported by Ursa and ABC Fitness. Anyway, my topic, I was looking at the American College of Sports Medicine trends, and I was comparing it to CanFit Pro trends for 2023 and FCW Fitness trends for 2023. And you know what? All three of us forgot to put wellness on as one of the interests.
Oh, wow.
And frankly, I was embarrassed that we didn't put it on because it is one of the hottest topics that I'm reading in Club Industry, Club Insider, the wellness, and we didn't put it on our research studies. And it's still out there, and I'm so proud of everybody that's on this webinar. Hello, Bob Esqueri, had to say hi to you, but it's like it's like shame on us, and we have to give it some time and energy. Now, Jessica, you've got a whole studio that is focused on this. And how big is your membership? How do you attract members? Is it word of mouth? I mean, you know, do you have special classes focused on different things? Please share.
Yeah, I was just telling Kimberly before we got on the call that I am getting trained in grief movement. It's Paul Dennison. I think he's in California. He also does grief yoga because I've seen, we all have, I've personally been through a lot of grief, and wellness and movement and nutrition has helped me work through the process. And so I was really interested in the certification, but I'm bringing it to the studio to help other women or men. Men are more than welcome to come, just to have a safe space to connect with one another, not compare their losses, but just to know that they're not alone. I've talked about the 5G mindset before at the SCW, and that's using your intrinsic gifts of gratitude every day, generosity, doing small acts of kindness each day for people, growth. We're here tonight, right? We're learning together. Grit, pushing ourselves past, what we think we can do, and then offering grace to ourselves and others. And so that's something I talk a lot about in my studio as well. Just using those 5 gifts to have a better mindset, because we tend to look for all the things that aren't working in our life, and I'm guilty of it myself. But when we change the direction, it can change the path of our life.
Yeah, and I can't agree with you more. And again, I'm going to commend the people that are on this webinar, because you've also got to feed your own soul, feed your own heart. And these webinars that we've been doing now for, oh my gosh, it's 2.5 years. We're getting almost on 3 years now. It really replenishes us. So I encourage all of you, please check out the Inspired Life. Look for Jessica's presenting. Look at the John W. Brick Foundation. They're also always looking for donations to help with some of the research and help with spreading the word of mental and physical health to the medical community, because sometimes, like Victor and Lynn said, it's undervalued. I can't believe, I'm like looking at my watch, I'm like, we're not out of time. We need another 3 hours. I'm going to take the screen for one quick second. I'm going to show you what's coming up. We've got our wonderful DC Mania convention is coming. It's in February. We've got 7 live conventions. We also have 5 online conferences. We offer 20 CECs, 130 sessions, 50 presenters, and we have also 16 certifications. And I'm just going to go in, and we also have a wonderful business summit I'll show you a quick video there, and then we'll probably call it a night. So I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. A big thank you to Lynn and Victor Brick for joining us. And as always, you're amazing, the two of you. And Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. And yes, whoever you were pointing to is probably a child.
Yes, you're right. Or a dog in this household.
They're always there. And then Kimberly, of course, we love you, dear. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Bob, we'll see you in one of our upcoming manias. He's a marvelous presenter. All right, take everybody. Thank you so much. And Chris Purple, thank you for running this webinar. Take care. Have
Thank
a
you,
good night.
Sarah.
Thank you.